And the Dane County Regional Airport is adding a handful of new nonstop flights. We'll tell you where.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now at noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Kane. Thanks for tuning in to News 3 Now on this Tuesday. I turn my microphone on. We're set to go. Get ready. More snow is on the way. Let's head over to the Weather Center. Meteorologist Chris Reese has a look at your first alert forecast.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. And it could be another accumulating round of snow as well as we head into the overnight hours. And this time, the ground is going to be a little bit colder than what we saw before the last snow events. Temperatures right now are still right at the freezing mark. Those winds out of the west and northwest at 12 miles per hour. 20s still showing up in parts of the area as well. The Dells at 29, Viroqua also at 29. But as we turn our attention to high-resolution Doppler, what we're watching, you see it starting to creep into the screen, is this next snowmaker that's going to be coming our way. And oddly enough, it does not look all that impressive. There are reasons for that. There are mountains as you work your way towards this part of the country that interfere with the radar, but also this system hasn't necessarily gained all of its oomph yet, but it will as we begin to move towards the overnight hours, and then particularly during the Wednesday morning commute. Already large parts of the area are under winter weather advisories for what would likely be yet another accumulating snow event. Mark, in a few minutes, we're going to time this out and talk about the impacts to tomorrow morning's rush hour.
Morning commute's going to be hard hit the way it looks.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris, we'll see you in a few minutes. Developing this afternoon, a pedestrian is dead after being hit by a car on Highway 12 and Mill Pond Road. That's right near the entrance to the Howard Hills Golf Course. The crash happened last night just after 7 p.m. and the highway was blocked off for 5 hours while investigators were on the scene. Police arrested 37-year-old Sean Jones on tentative charges of knowingly operating with a revoked license causing death. Records show Jones had 3 prior violations for operating while revoked after losing his license and being ordered to install a breathalyzer in his car after his 3rd DUI. The vehicle he was driving was also recovered by police. The name of the victim has not yet been released. In rural Rock County, a 24-year-old Illinois man was killed this morning in a farming accident. This happened about 2 miles east of Gibbs Lake Park around 1:15 this morning. According to an initial investigation, an 18-year-old Illinois man was driving the tractor. When the victim attempted to get out, he slipped on a mud-covered ladder and was struck by the tractor's rear tire. The investigation is ongoing, but the sheriff's office says no foul play is suspected. State officials are investigating a fatal officer-involved shooting in Manitowoc County. The Department of Justice says 2 officers conducted a traffic stop in the lakeside community of Two Rivers. An officer fired his gun, striking the person inside the car. The firearm was recovered from the scene, but investigators have not released details about what led up to the shooting. The man died in the hospital from his injuries. Madison water utility crews expect to spend most of the day repairing a broken water main on the west side. It happened at 9:15 last night at Whitney Way and Gilbert Road near Vitence Gulfland. 5 customers are still without service. A vicious ambush by a drug cartel in Mexico has left 9 Americans dead, including 6 children. The victims were part of a church group with ties to Utah. Hillary Lane has the latest from New York.
Video posted to Facebook shows a scorched SUV that apparently contained 5 victims of a deadly ambush about 100 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border.
This is for the record. Nita and 4 of my grandchildren are burnt and shot up.
The victims, who were all women and children, were in a convoy taking some of them to a wedding. They reportedly all belonged to a decades-old religious community based in northern Mexico. The youngest victims were twin babies, just 7 months old.
We're still trying to get more of the details on what happened, on whether these individuals were singled out or whether they happened to be the wrong place at the wrong time.
On Twitter, President Trump wrote, "A wonderful family and friends from Utah got caught between 2 vicious drug cartels." He added, if Mexico needs or requests help in cleaning out these monsters, the United States stands ready, willing, and able to get involved. Some of the children survived the ambush but have gunshot wounds. Relatives say 5 children have been taken to the U.S. for treatment. Hillary Lane, CBS News.
And Mexican officials say several children who fled the attack were lost for hours in the countryside before being found. Well, the public will get a look at the testimony of two of President Trump's key players in his dealings with Ukraine. Kurt Volkner, former special envoy to Ukraine, and Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, both testified last month about the withholding of military aid to Ukraine and requests to get the country to launch political investigations. They worked to set up the July 25th phone call between Presidents Trump and Zelensky when the president pushed for the investigations.
I think the day that Ambassador Volker testified, we all walked out here and said, we hope they release that transcript.
More Trump administration officials scheduled to testify today were no-shows, while an associate of the president's personal attorney says he now is willing to cooperate with the impeachment inquiry. Wisconsin had the second largest drug take-back day collection in the country last month. Attorney General Josh Kaul says the state had a total collection of more than 660,000 pounds. Statewide, 280 law enforcement agencies hosted collections. Wisconsin's Republican-controlled Senate is scheduled to vote on whether to fire Governor Evers' pick for the agriculture secretary. Evers' administration, industry groups, and Democrats are urging Republicans to confirm Brad Pfaff and allow him to continue the job he's held since January. But Republicans don't agree with Pfaff's decisions, including a push to reduce the smell of manure through new placement rules. Well, big news for Madison travelers. Dane County Regional Airport just announced nonstop service to 5 locations starting next spring. Sun Country Airlines launched the largest nonstop expansion in our airport's history today. Travelers can now fly direct to Boston, Seattle, Nashville, Portland, and Newark.
A lot of times we think about this is just where we can get easily, but you also have to remember this is where other people can get to Madison. And so it's not just thinking about, oh, I can get to Boston or Seattle in a quick nonstop route. It's also about people in those communities, people in Seattle and Boston can now get a direct route to Madison. And I think that's about putting Madison on the map, putting our economy on the map.
For now, the flights are seasonal. For a look at the flight schedule, head to our website. Well, there's more to come on News 3 Now at noon. Up next, we'll see what Howard is working on in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
You don't need a fancy rotisserie to make great roasted chicken. All you need is one pan. Any ideas what it is? Here in the test kitchen, we love it when we can find alternate uses for everyday kitchen items. One of my favorites is using a bunt pan to roast a chicken. It not only helps it stand on end while it cooks, but it also infuses it with all the goodness that we surround it with. Let me show you how easy it is. We begin by mixing olive oil with some garlic and onion powder, along with paprika and a little salt and pepper. We rub this all over the chicken, inside and out. Now we place the chicken tail side down onto the center part of the bun pan, like this. You want to make sure that the tips of the wings are tucked in so they don't burn while they cook. Then we surround the chicken with cut up carrots and onions, top those with some fresh thyme, and pour on some chicken broth and white wine. This goes onto a baking sheet and into the oven it goes to slow roast until it's cooked through and the skin is crispy. There you have it, one of the most flavorful and moist roasted chickens you'll ever eat. It sort of self-bastes as it cooks and picks up tons of flavors from the herbs and wine. The recipe for our herb roasted bun pan chicken is online now, just in time for dinner tonight. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a creatively delicious way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
All right, Howard, thank you. Next at noon, we have some winter weather alert days coming up. That includes cold temperatures and accumulating snow. Chris has the details next in your first alert forecast. A major bank is hiking the minimum wage to $20 an hour, and Microsoft is testing out a shorter work week to boost productivity. Diane King Hall has your Money Watch report.
The U.S. trade deficit fell in September to the lowest level in 5 months. According to the Commerce Department, the gap between exports and imports fell 4.7% to $52.5 billion. The drop came thanks to a surplus in petroleum. The politically sensitive gap with China narrowed, but the trade war is weighing as the U.S. sold fewer cars and other goods overseas. Uber pulls up another quarterly loss. The ride-sharing service says its latest loss topped $1 billion. The stock fell in reaction to the numbers despite the company's pledge to turn a profit by 2021. Bank of America is boosting its minimum wage earlier than expected. The bank says it is hiking its minimum pay to $20 an hour beginning in 2020. Previously, B of A planned to do that in 2021. But like its rivals, the bank is dealing with a tight labor market and must pay more to lure talent. And an experiment workers can cheer about after Microsoft tested a 4-day work week in Japan. During the pilot project, productivity shot up by almost 40%. Microsoft also reported it used less electricity and printed fewer pages. Workers in Japan still received their normal 5-day paycheck during the experiment. Microsoft plans to conduct another test in the coming weeks. And that's your CBS Money Watch report. For more, head to cbsmoneywatch.com. At the New York Stock Exchange, I'm Diane King Hall.
Thank you, Diane. At the noon hour, the Dow Industrials up 61 points. The NASDAQ up 10. The S&P 500, however, is down almost a point. Pam Youngke's out of the radio barn today, so here are your farm numbers. Time now for the weather. It is Winter Awareness Week, and Chris, I think we're all well aware the winter is around here.
Yes, the Winter Weather Awareness Week came just in time, and Mother Nature seems to have joined us for the party. Now, around this time of the year, especially as we typically get a little bit deeper into the season, you start hearing us say things like Alberta Clipper and things like that. Well, I'm going to define one of those for you. What is an Alberta Clipper? This is a system that oftentimes forms in the Canadian Rockies. And as it starts to encounter a lot of that cold Canadian air, snow begins to develop that then eventually gets caught up in the jet stream, and then that moves towards the south. It gets pushed across the country relatively quickly, and then once that moves on towards the east. But generally, these leave about 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 inches of snow in their wake. And folks, right on time. That's what we are watching here for us as we move into tonight. Here's that system already developing across parts of Montana. You do see some light snow associated with that, but a lot of it has truly yet to get its act together. You've got a lot of mountains and dry air across this part of the high plains, but as it moves towards the south, we will eventually begin to encounter more moisture, and more snow will begin to break out. In fact, we do have winter weather advisories. These are for overnight into tomorrow morning. They'll go into effect at midnight, and they won't come down until noon time tomorrow. Now, I do want to point out our southern counties, this does include Janesville, are not in the winter weather advisory, but you will likely see some snow by the time you get towards tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. We do have an alert day for the area. Snow accumulations of upwards to 4 inches will be possible, and this will likely have some significant impacts as we head into that morning commute tomorrow. In the meantime, things are fun out there for us. Plenty of sunshine, but still, those temperatures are right at 32 degrees. It's breezy with those winds at 12 miles per hour, so it feels like 23. Fun out there for us. Here's how things go across the rest of the area. 34 in Wautoma, Wisconsin Dells at 30. We did have some areas in the 20s, but we're all now starting to warm up. And with the sunshine, I do think we'll all warm up well above freezing by the time we move towards the afternoon. Look for a high in Madison right around 37. Janesville, you guys are already at 37, so your high will likely be just a couple degrees warmer. But let's start timing things out. Here we are at midnight. Those clouds are starting to move in. You start to see that snow starting to move in from Iowa. By 5 o'clock, this is when I do start to think that we'll see that first round of snow starting to break out. And we're going to continue to see that snow move through. Here we are, 7 o'clock. This is the rush hour. This is likely when we'll see some of the heaviest snow in here. And get this, temperatures will be into the 20s. So yes, you are going to see some snow accumulating on the roads at that point. 9 o'clock, 31, starting to come above freezing at this point. By noon, I think we will. Temperatures will be right around 34. Notice that southern tip. That's where we could see some rain starting to mix in as this all winds down and comes to an end. We'll see those highs right around 38 tomorrow. In terms of accumulated snow, yes, we're looking at about 3 to 4 inches of snow, especially through the northern parts of the viewing area. Madison, Waunakee, that's where you could see 3 or 4 inches. As you work your way south down towards Janesville and Beloit, you're looking more so at 1 to 3 inches of snowfall out of this. But we all begin to see an impact to that morning commute. You're talking snow and ice covered roads by 6 and 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., I do think things start to get better. This is 10 a.m., not p.m., and then by 2 p.m., things should be good. Temperatures should be warm enough that snow should begin to melt for us. But then it's the cold that comes after that. We're going to see a shot of cold for Thursday into Friday, a brief warm up for the weekend, and then perhaps another bigger shot of cold by the time we get you towards this time next week. So folks, it may be Winter Weather Awareness Week. I think November is just Winter Weather Awareness Month at this point. These are temperatures that are typically seen in January by the time you get towards next Monday with a high of 22. Yeah, and then an overnight low of 12. Thursday night into Friday, a couple other snow chances in there as well. So folks, I mean, there's a silver lining somewhere.
maybe we'll get it out of the system and we'll warm up by January.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
We'll see
how that plays out. I don't know, but I guess the weather man in me is excited about what happens.
Good for you.
Yes.
Be careful in the morning.
Thanks. Yes,
all right.
absolutely.
Thank you, Chris. Next at noon, 2 Texas high school football rivals are getting a lot of attention online for coming together to pray. Stay with us.
News 3.
Two high school football players went head-to-head during a game in Texas Friday night, but they captured many people's hearts when they bonded after. Braylee McCoy has the story.
This is just one of the key plays that Sherman High School senior Gage Smith made at their game against West Mesquite on Friday. But it's what Smith did after the game that most people remember.
When you're playing the game, you're playing to win, and the other team is the enemy. But afterwards, you know, you still have the respect for the other opponent.
Smith says he knows West Mesquite player Ty Jordan from a select 7-on-7 team they both played on. Jordan's mom is battling cancer, and Smith asked to pray with him after the game.
Just had a moment with him, praying over him, his mom, and his family.
Smith says in that moment, it wasn't about the score or being opponents. It was about showing compassion. Jordan's aunt posted the pictures to Facebook, expressing how much the gesture meant to their family. So far, it has over 100,000 shares.
To see that it blew up, I was very surprised by it, and I wasn't expecting it to be like that. You know, it was just doing it for him and doing it for his mom and his family.
Sherman football coach J.D. Martinez says Smith has been a team leader on and off the field.
He's a true leader, and he has compassion, and I think it follows through for a lot of our guys on our team.
Martinez says his wife happened to capture the special moment, and she sent the pictures to Smith's mom, who passed them on to Jordan's family.
Pretty special that kind of everybody gets to see really what he is. He's that type of kid all the time. It's just not in front of the cameras or anything like that. He's like that every day.
Football brings people together in so many different ways, and that was just one example of it that night.
Good for them. Sun for now, Chris.
That's right. We're seeing that sunshine out there, but clouds will be on the increase as we move through the evening. Look for more snow tomorrow morning.